India targets Pakistan for being quote unquote a rogue state at the United Nations. On the ground in Kashmir, there are black bands at establishments across the Kashmir Valley as the valley comes together in unprecedented protests against Pakistan and its support to terrorism. Meanwhile, a rattled Pakistan is talking about an imminent military attack from India. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. These are the images that are seen at Srinagar's Lal Chowk. Shopkeepers are protesting against Pakistan with black flags at their establishment. While the city is open and you can see the shops are open and life is slowly inching back towards some kind of normal, those black bands are making their own statement about an inflection point in the Kashmir Valley where the entire valley seems to have come together to take on Pakistan and what happened in Pahalgam. Meanwhile, this mysterious new viral video shows a zipline operator chanting Allahu Akbar moments before the attack seems to unfold. An unaware tourist mysteriously ziplines right into the heart of the terror attack, unaware of those scrambling behind him. The zipline operator has now been arrested by the NIA, which is, of course, in the middle of a massive manhunt in the Kashmir Valley to catch and neutralize the terrorists who did this. This video has raised many questions, and it comes at a time when India has, of course, taken its diplomatic attack on Pakistan to the global stage. You can see that unfolding at the United Nations, and on the ground in the Kashmir Valley, the houses of established terrorists are being razed to the ground. Let me introduce our panel as we look at what has happened and we look ahead at what can, should, and might happen. Let me welcome Sushant Sareen, one of India's best-known strategic affairs analysts, to the program. Welcome, Sushant. Also joining us is veteran diplomat TCA Raghavan. Ambassador Raghavan has been India's High Commissioner to Pakistan. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And former Army Chief General Malik is with us, the general who led India to victory in the Kargil war. As possible war clouds loom again, he will help us understand what the challenges are at this moment. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. I want to start by playing out for you India's statement at the United Nations. Take a look.
Thank you, madam. It is unfortunate that one particular delegation has chosen to misuse and undermine this forum to indulge in propaganda and make baseless allegations against India. The whole world has heard Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif admitting and confessing Pakistan's history of supporting, training, and funding terrorist organizations in a recent television interview. This open confession surprises no one and exposes Pakistan as a rogue state fueling global terrorism and destabilizing the region. The world can no longer turn a blind eye. I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Very precise comment there by India. I'll start with you, General Malik, if I may. Pakistan is rattled. It seems to make nuclear threats one day. Today, it's talking about an imminent incursion from India. Obviously, we want to discuss nothing operational, but what are the challenges? What would the Indian military establishment be focused on at this point? Because if there is kinetic action, it may not be confined to one sector. General Malik.
Barkha, yes, we've had two kinetic actions earlier, post Uri raid by the Pakistani terrorists, and then post Pulwama. And apparently they've not been very helpful. Of course, we had some peace for some time, but the approach that has been adopted quite rightly by the government of India, it is unfolding slowly. It has already unfolded diplomatically. It has also unfolded in terms of economics hit on the Indus Water Treaty. They have been told what to expect. And now it is possible that the CCS is discussing the kinetic approach, where it is possible, how it can be launched. and what will be the consequences. We have to look for opportunities, we have to look for timings, we have to look for its implications and reaction from the other side. All those aspects, I'm sure, are being considered. So the way the Prime Minister's speech, he has been speaking in the last few days, it was quite apparent that we haven't yet fully exhausted our approach, our action that we have to take. It's still going on. And under these circumstances, one can quite understand the panic it has caused on the other side, including by the Defence Minister on the other side. That one can expect.
Right. Before we sort of, take a look at what those challenges might mean for us, we've also had China at least offering somewhat rhetorical and cursory support to Pakistan's call for a so-called neutral investigation, which of course India has rubbished. General Malik, briefly, how much of a challenge do you think China might be? And I ask this because as India explores kinetic action, military action, we have an Eastern Ladakh frontier, which, while not inflamed like the line of control is today, is still something where we can't let our guard down. Are you concerned about China?
Look, as far as China is concerned, I'm giving you my personal opinion. Firstly, I think they will continue to support Pakistan in international forum diplomatically, which they have already started. I think they will continue to give them intelligence and wherewithal, defense wherewithal. But I don't think they would like to get themselves involved physically on our borders. And the kind of action that they have taken post 2020 in the recent months, I would say rapprochement from both sides after our Prime Minister and President Xi met each other. Under those circumstances, I don't think they would want to start anything physically along the line of control, a line of actual control. But the other help they will probably continue to give diplomatically, as well as in terms of giving them intelligence, giving them whatever defense needs that Pakistan may need.
Right. Meanwhile, a mysterious, unexplained viral video is raising multiple questions. I see Ambassador Raghavan is back with us and Sushant is also there. Most of us have seen this video. It's of a tourist taking a zipline ride. The zipline operator besides him says very calmly, Allahu Akbar. The tourist then goes right into the tiger's den, as it were, completely unaware that there are people scrambling for their lives behind him. Take a look at this video.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. पैर लंबा करो.
मेरे आगे जो 9 बंदे ने स्लाइड की, इवन मेरे लड़के ने भी स्लाइड की, मेरे वाइफ ने भी स्लाइड की, तब वो बंदा कुछ नहीं बोला. जब मैंने स्लाइड कर रहा था तब वो बोला और उसके बाद फायरिंग हुई है. उसलिए उस बंदे पे मुझे थोड़ा डाउट हो रहा था. वो अल्लाहू अकबर 3 बार बोला और फायरिंग स्टार्ट हुई.
तब आपको कुछ अंदाजा नहीं लगा?
नहीं, तब मेरे को मालूम नहीं था. पर ये चीज मैं बोल रहा हूँ ना कि जब 23 तारीख को हम गुजरात पहुंचे, यहाँ मेरे भाई के पास बैठे, हम फैमिली मेंबर सारे वीडियो देख रहे थे, तब ये चीज हमको नोटिस हुई कि आगे के एक भी वीडियो में ये बंदा कुछ नहीं बोल रहा है, इसी टाइम बोल रहा है और फिर फायरिंग स्टार्ट हुई.
So this is a rather bewildering video, Sushant. The man is saying Allah Akbar in a rather calm way. The tourist seems absolutely oblivious. There are gunshots that when we hear the video, we can hear them. I don't know how these men were not able to hear them. The zipline operator is now under NIA investigation. What are your thoughts on this video?
Barkha, I think I'm going to get a lot of hate mail on what I'm going to say now. Look, but there's no way any of us can, stand up for the veracity of this guy. But look, number one, as far as this video is concerned, the firing starts, and that is when this guy starts saying Allahu Akbar. It's not as though he was giving a cue for firing to start and saying Allahu Akbar. I think at least that's what I could make out from the video. Secondly, I think anybody who has studied terrorism or seen scenes from other places where, attacks have taken place or civilians have been caught in a crossfire or something. One of the standard phrases which people say is Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. It's almost like, somebody will maybe chant a mantra or something, it's also that. Now, maybe this guy wasn't able to make out where the firing was coming from, and I hold no brief for him. Like I said, I have no way of checking the bona fides of this character. Okay, if he has been picked up by the NIA, they'll certainly investigate him, and of course, if he has nothing to do with what has happened, he will be off. And detaining him and questioning him is par for the course, because after all, there would have been some people in that area who would have either some knowledge or some hint of what was about to happen. But I think the video in itself is pretty horrific. And frankly, this guy who's on the zip line, who is now pretending that he had certain suspicions, the guy is very coolly, filming himself while firing is going on. He can't hear the firing. And there are people dying. We can see in the video that there are people being shot down. They're running away and people are being shot down. And this guy can't hear anything. He's simply filming himself coolly. So, people also start realizing what was happening after an event. While the event is coming out, very often the brain does not even process the new information which is happening, because otherwise it was all nice and calm. So I would imagine that, videos, while important and while do point to something, I think people who have to start investigating these videos and use them as some kind of evidence or try and make sense of what happened need to be a little more circumspect than, have a knee-jerk reaction.
Absolutely. And the NIA will investigate, and hopefully they will be able to explain this bewildering video where everybody but the tourist seems to be able to hear the gunshots. Why is this zipline operator saying Allahu Akbar in a placid, blank sort of way almost? It's all very confusing. Very briefly, Sushant, before I go to Ambassador Raghavan, the larger picture. You've got a rattled Pakistan. Khwaja Asif goes on Sky News, makes the most bizarre, astonishing admission about how Pakistan has been using terrorism to do the dirty work, as he called it, for Western nations, now trying to backpedal from that statement. Same Khwaja Asif is now forecasting, India's military action is coming. Obviously, we don't want to know. We should not know when this action is coming. But there is one concern about managing the escalatory ladder, because whatever is going to happen in whatever way will have to be either different from or bigger than what happened after Uri and after Pulwama. What are the challenges as you see them?
Barkha, you asked me enough questions to occupy me for the whole program, but I'll try and answer them as briefly as possible. See, one on Khwaja Asif, he's a loudmouth. Okay, he's an obnoxious loudmouth, and like most of the Pakistani ministers who shoot their mouth off, and then they realize that they have to put their foot in their mouth. And in case of Khwaja Asif, not only has he implicated Pakistan, although he lied, because the Americans walked out in 1990, right? They stopped funding the jihad and they had washed their hands of it. The Pakistanis latched onto it and used it to fuel jihad around the world, not just in Kashmir, not just in the region, but around the world, from Bosnia to Malaysia to Indonesia to Philippines, everywhere. Their fingerprints and their footprints were found, including in Africa. Okay, and I can give you documents which prove it. Then Khwaja Asif realized not only has he implicated Pakistan being involved in it, he has also implicated the Americans, that we were doing the dirty work for the Americans. Although when the Americans came in the second time in Afghanistan, the Pakistan were backstabbing them. They were playing the treacherous game of backstabbing the Americans. So one is Khwaja Asif is trying to walk back because he's got a lot of flack for opening his big mouth and shooting it off. On the escalatory ladder, I think that is really going to be the big question, really. And until and unless, and this is my belief, because having seen the past exchanges between India and Pakistan, I think we need to re-establish deterrence. Deterrence will not be re-established if we stop at the first rung of the escalation ladder, because I think it's a given that the Pakistani retaliation will come somewhere. And until and unless we're willing to go up on that escalation ladder and respond to their retaliation with our own retaliation, and then leave the ball in the Pakistani court that if they want to come back at us, we will have a Balakot-like situation, which has a kind of, which really did not establish a very partial kind of a deterrence, in the sense that the Pakistanis knew that the Indians will hit, but the Pakistanis also thought that, we can settle the scores. I think this time around we'll have to disabuse them of this, that we are ready to go up the escalation ladder. But then how far are we willing to go up the escalation ladder, right? That is going to be a question that the government and the armed forces will have to work out, because the logical end of the escalation ladder is that you get into a full-blown war kind of a situation. And are we ready to go down that road? How far are we willing to go? How far are the Pakis willing to go? Because as far as I'm concerned, I think even the Pakistani calculation is, okay, the Indians will do something, we will hit back, and that is where things will settle down. But what if they don't? What if India does go up that ladder? How far are the Pakis willing to go? I think this is something that we will also need to work out, factor in, and I suppose this is what the government would be working on right now.
Absolutely. That is the big question. Ambassador Raghavan, let's bring you in. Before we lost you briefly, we were also talking about what role China might play. China has already sort of, echoed Pakistan's demand for a so-called neutral investigation, which India has rubbished. General Malik said that he doesn't see China getting involved in any military fashion, whatever they may say verbally or rhetorically. And there's also the rapprochement that has taken place between India and China, now holding for many months. As India takes into confidence, diplomats from across the world, what might be India's challenge? One challenge that I see is that the West is distracted. I don't know if that's a challenge or that's a good thing. The West is distracted with Israel, Gaza, Russia, Ukraine, their own domestic nonsense, tariffs, right? You have a distracted world. But this is also very reminiscent of the Chitti Singhpura attack that took place when Clinton came. These attacks took place when J.D. Vance was here. But that India is not today's India. That Kashmir is not today's Kashmir. And that America is not today's America. So how do you see this unfolding?
Well, I see not one, but three challenges. The first challenge is, how do you send the right message to Pakistan? And here the issue is that, at least in my reading, I have no insider information at all, but my reading of the mood in both countries is that both are willing to go up the escalation ladder much higher than they were the previous time around. So that makes for potentially a dangerous situation. I think the second challenge is the international challenge, which you mentioned, and that, I think, is less of a challenge than we normally think, because there is a great deal of perhaps understated, perhaps unspoken sense in many countries around the world that the Pakistanis usually have their hand in situations of this kind, and must, if India takes some action, they may not like it, they may not agree, but they will say, so be it. So there is the international challenge, nevertheless, of how to make sure that opinion around the world stays consolidated. The biggest challenge is the domestic challenge, because, and this is again always the case, how do you placate domestic political public opinion? And here the expectation is that only some kind of a military or kinetic action can address domestic public opinion. And therefore you have, in a sense, already started going up the escalation ladder without quite knowing where it will lead to. I think to my mind, this high expectation that only military action is the way out, or some tactical kinetic step is the way out, really overlooks the very significant diplomatic action which has been undertaken. The keeping the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance is a major step, because it has been combined with visas which were not being issued, with trade which had in any case been banned and had come to ground to a halt. We have the import of that step has somehow not been grasped by the public. It has always been, in a sense, a kind of
because it's a technical subject, Ambassador Raghavan.
I don't think it's a technical subject at all. In Pakistan, it's not at all a technical subject. In Pakistan, this touches a raw nerve. So it is perhaps a very major step that you have taken, but because it was taken right at the beginning, our own public opinion has not internalized it. They think, oh, this is just diplomatic, the real action is going to come. And I think that creates problems as we deal with this situation.
There is also
there's
there's also one perception. I know Sushant wanted to come in, but briefly, Ambassador Raghavan, there's also a perception on the Indus Water Treaty, which I agree with you is a huge move. I'm just trying to read the public mood or their lack of capacity to process it, that it will take time to implement. That yes, okay, there is a move towards stopping or controlling water's flow into Pakistan, but time lagega, waqt lagega. So maybe that visible action is not there.
I don't think it's ever going to be a question of stopping the water. I mean, to effectively stop the Chenab, you need a reservoir of a size which nobody has ever envisaged. It's not an engineering issue or a technical issue of upgrading infrastructure. This is a very strong political message which has been sent, but somehow that message, while it has registered in Pakistan, has not registered to the same extent amongst our public opinion. And this I see is the problem, because as I said, one of the challenges which we are going to face is how to reassure people that Pakistan cannot get away with this kind of outrage. I think that domestic challenge is the biggest challenge, and this is not just this time. After every major terrorist attack, how do you address your own public is the real central issue.
Let's get reactions to the Indus Water Treaty from both Sushant and General Malik. Sushant, you wanted to come in? Go ahead.
Point out, which is exactly what I was going to talk about, which is that, the people want that punitive measures need to be taken. Now, I agree with what Ambassador Raghavan is saying, that probably this is the single most significant step that the government could have taken and has taken. Now, how this plays out, in the domain of lawfare as we go forward, we need to wait and see. Because, of course, the Pakistanis will challenge it legally. They will try and drag us to various courts. But that is besides the point. That will also depend on how much diplomatic heft we can bring to, stonewall whatever the Pakis are trying to do. But I think in the immediate, the important thing is that, one, what we can do just now with the current infrastructure that we have on these rivers is rather limited. We might be able to hurt them a little bit depending on how we regulate the flows of water, but at best it will be marginal, maybe 5%, maybe 10%. And I'm being a little generous in saying 5 to 10%. Because, the reservoir capacities, even of the run-of-the-river projects, we cannot draw down the water right to the base and then, fill up the reservoirs so that we can regulate the flows for a long bit of time. And then how do we, if we had the gates to open it for the silt, and this is a question I keep asking people, I haven't got any answer, but if we could, dump the silt into the river, which is coming in, and flush our own projects, then we can create a lot of damage downstream. But the problem is that a lot of it will take time, maybe a year, maybe two, by the time a couple of more projects will come in. Yeah. People want to hear the Pakistanis shriek in pain because of the kind of terrorism and barbarism that these guys have. And what is even more galling than, adding what you might say insult to injury, although I think it's much worse than insult, is the kind of glib talk by these third-raters in Pakistan, these Najam Sethis and others, who say it's a false flag attack. You buggers are killing me and telling me that I am killing myself. I am committing suicide. They are so shameless, all of them. And the fact that I've ever had to shake their hands or, even associate myself with them, I feel I have a sense of self-loathing that how I could do it with these people. They are barbarians, and there is no other word to describe these fellows.
Yeah. General Malik, I think both Sushant and Ambassador Raghavan make a very important point. This is the first time in the history of India and Pakistan's many wars, many conflicts, that the treaty has been suspended. The logic for not doing it earlier used to be The state is our adversary. The people of Pakistan are not our adversary. We will operate from this sort of moral position कि Pakistan के लोग impact na ho. Obviously, all kinds of red lines have been crossed this time, and Ambassador makes the point that look, why are people in our country not understanding what a big move this is? I think Sushant speaks to the psychology of the moment. That Indians who have seen, there is no part of India that has been left untouched by what has happened. India wants to see visible action, and the treaty suspension, while huge, is not visible to the Aam Aadmi and the Aam Aurat. How do you see it, sir?
Barkha, as far as Indus Water Treaty is concerned, let me share it with you that we have considered it even in 99. But of course, for political reasons and other reasons, it was dropped at that time also. But we have to look at this aspect both domestically as to what kind of a punitive action will that be, and will it satisfy our Indian public? That is the punitive part of it. And secondly, we have to look at it, whether it will, what kind of deterrence it will have, the impact of Indus Water Treaty, as we have now tried to delay it or postpone it for some time. So if I look at it, punitive action requires something happening immediately. That is what I think our domestic public wants. And that is what they are looking for quite some time. For a few days, they will continue to do that. The deterrence part, I'm not too sure, because as both Sushant Sareen as well as Ambassador Raghavan has said, the impact of taking action on Indus Water Treaty, or it is becoming applicable to Pakistan, is going to take some time. It is not that it's not going to happen tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Whatever action we may try and take, it is going to take months together, if not the years. So that impact will not be there, and therefore that may not satisfy our public in short term, in the near term. So that is one aspect that we have to keep it in mind. Now, as far as the other question is concerned, look, we are now adopting a whole of the nation approach. And that approach means that whether it is Pakistani public, which has not been able to influence its polity or its military rulers, the fact is that they have had no impact at all on their policies. So therefore, this time what we are, the whole of the nation approach means that, well, if it should affect all of them. And therefore, I'm afraid the public, which we were trying to, Pakistani public, which we were not wanting to hurt, I think they will have to realize that whatever the Pakistani politicians or Pakistani military people primarily, they are doing, it is hurting them. So we hope by taking an action, the Pakistani public will also raise its hand and try and influence their politicians and the military men, so-called mad politicians and mad military men.
Right. Before we look ahead, and one thing that has been said by Ambassador Raghavan is that his reading is that both India and Pakistan seem ready to go much higher up the escalatory ladder. There is something unfolding in the Kashmir Valley, which we should also talk about. On the one hand, of course, there are two local Kashmiri terrorists, Asif Sheikh and Adil Thokar, whom there is a massive manhunt to hunt down. But on the other hand, we've also seen these sort of unprecedented protests against Pakistan, and people just coming out in tears, coming out in rage, saying that we stand with the rest of India. I want to play out a clip from one such Kashmiri protester on the ground. Take a look.
इस वक्त मैं हिंदुस्तान की आवाम से इतना कहना चाहता हूँ कि आप आ जाओ, आप इस वक्त कश्मीरियों का हाथ मत छोड़ो, क्योंकि ये कश्मीरी पूरा हिंदुस्तानी बन चुका है।
कश्मीरी पूरा
हिंदुस्तानी बन चुका है। ये आपने खुद देखा होगा, खुद लोग निकले, किस सेपरेटिस्ट ने आज कॉल दी थी, किसने कॉल दी थी। मगर इस बार अगर हिंदुस्तान आवाम ने हमारा हाथ छोड़ दिया, हमें ये डर नहीं है कि टूरिस्ट यहाँ आए या ना आए, वो हमारे यहाँ पे लोग बोलने से डरते हैं, क्योंकि असली एक्चुअल रीजन ये है कि अगर टूरिस्ट यहाँ पे नहीं आएगा, ये पूरा फिर से फ्लॉप हो जाएगा नीचे। हमारे बच्चों को बहकाने वाले बहुत मिल जाएंगे, इन्हीं को कल कहेंगे देखो आपने इतना किया था, इन्होंने आपके साथ क्या किया, बहका के ले जाएंगे, कभी गन थमा देंगे, पत्थर थमा देंगे, फिर से वही हालत हो जाएगी। हम ये नहीं चाहते। हम इस वक्त हिंदुस्तान की आवाम से इतना ही रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि आप कैंसिल बुकिंग मत करो, आप आ जाए, आप इस वक्त कश्मीरियों का हाथ पकड़ो।
These are important statements that we need to talk about. General Malik, do you want to start? Because, you know, all of us have spent a lifetime looking at the Kashmir Valley, looking at the India-Pakistan dynamic. We used to always say to the Kashmiris, आप हर चीज के लिए बाहर निकलते हैं सड़क पे, आप टेररिज्म के खिलाफ क्यों नहीं निकलते? This time it is happening.
Look, I'm a little partial to Kashmiris. I have to accept that. Even during Kargil war, what I saw, as far as Kashmiris were concerned, they were quite helpful at that time. Unfortunately, whenever such a crisis takes place and it affects Kashmir much more than anywhere else in India, the Kashmiris also start looking at inside. I mean, they start looking inside, inward, and then start supporting us also. I cannot forget the kind of janazas that I saw of some Kashmiri soldiers who were killed when the janazas were taken in Anantnag and what happened there. So I am a little partial toward them. It's a good development from a very unfortunate incident that has taken place. Once again, they have been made to realize that Pakistan is not helpful. Whatever is happening today, it is hurting the Kashmiris most as far as India is concerned. So that is a good development from one side, as I said, after that unfortunate incident, and it will be helpful in whatever we take, whatever we undertake, militarily or non-military action, whatever we take. So that would be helpful
Absolutely.
from our domestic point of view.
Absolutely. But, you know, just adding on to this, Ambassador Raghavan and Sushant, while you have these black flags in the Kashmir Valley and India is still calibrating how India will respond, in what phases, we have one inadvertent sort of, I don't want to use the word crisis, but a challenge, and that relates to a BSF constable who has been detained by Pakistan. Now, we know that there have been several meetings between the Pakistan Rangers and the BSF, and he accidentally crossed the international border in Firozpur, Punjab. He has a pregnant wife, and these talks are on. You know, if we can, yeah, there you can see the pregnant wife of the BSF Jawan in Pak custody is in Punjab. So, you know, I just want to also draw our attention to this and the kind of challenges this kind of conflict will inevitably throw up. You know, at a different time, he would have been handed back. Ambassador Raghav?
Well, I'm sure he'll be handed back this time too. Possibly it's, I mean, normally this kind of situation is not unprecedented. And if you're looking for, you know, collateral issues which have arisen from this deep crisis in India-Pakistan relations, there are many such collateral issues, including of divided families and, you know, and so on, which are inevitable because there is, notwithstanding the deeply adversarial relations between India and Pakistan, there has always been a certain base amount of social and kinship connections. Now, as far as the BSF Jawan is concerned, I think these inadvertent crossers situation have arisen from time to time, and both sides have SOPs on how to deal with it. So I presume it will be dealt with on the same lines. Perhaps because of the heightened tensions, it may take a little longer. But I don't have any reason to assume that, no, this is heading towards some kind of an unfortunate outcome.
Yeah. I want to bring in Sushant now. Sushant, one thing is quite clear that there is, of course, we all know this, that there has been religious targeting of Hindu tourists in this attack. And we have testimony upon testimony. If we have time, we'll play out one such testimony for you. But the aim seems quite clear: divide Hindus and Muslims in India. That's Pakistan's aim. You join the dots to Asim Munir's crazy, unhinged communal speech a few days before the attack, and it's quite clear what the Pakistan agenda is. The only strong counter to it is to tell also the stories of the Shawlwala in Kashmir who ran to the help of the tourists, the Poniwala Adil Hussain who took bullets to save the tourists. Jhantu Ali Sheikh, who died in the line of duty in an anti-terror op right after the Pahalgam terror attack. But when you see this dimension of religious targeting, the attempt to divide Indian people, you know, is there a plan here that seems different from previous terror attacks when you connect the dots to Munir's speech?
No, but look, when has that not been part of the Pakistani plan? When they planted bombs in Delhi on the eve of Diwali, was that not part of their plan? So at every stage, the Pakistanis have tried to play this communal game. I think it's kudos to the Indian Muslim community. People like Asaduddin Owaisi, the kind of speeches he made. I might have 500,000 disagreements with the guy, but when the occasion came, he rose to it. Right? There'll be political differences, political jostling, which is par for the course. After all, we are a democracy. Different people have different, interests. So they will obviously promote them. They have different vote banks. All my opposition to Mr. Owaisi otherwise, but I think the speech which he made is something which is an exemplar for everybody. Many others, and I think a lot of people in the Muslim community, they came out and said, not in our name. In fact, the problem has been from a secular party like the Congress and the motor mouths in that particular party, or so-called Kisan Netas who are actually playing the Pakistani game. I don't know whether out of ignorance, out of sheer stupidity, whatever it was. But I would imagine the bulk of the Muslim community in India has played a very good role. I think even otherwise, there'll be the odd voices, odd noises, social media handles that will try and stir up trouble. But I think on balance, the communal harmony has been maintained. Barkha, allow me to say two things on questions you put to General Malik and Ambassador Raghwan. See, I think on the BSF Jawan, going forward from what Mr. Raghwan said, I also think that this should not be made a cause celebre right now, for the reasons Mr. Raghwan pointed out. Because, otherwise the whole focus gets diverted ke hamara banda wapas dega hamara. No.
Right.
They can't do damn all to him. If they were to try to do that, there'll be serious repercussions. In any case, there are going to be serious repercussions as we are talking. So keep the BSF guy aside. And this is also a sign that if at all we get into a conflict-like situation, this is not going to be a video game where a lot of people die but nobody gets hurt. People are going to die. People are going to get hurt. There will be tremendous loss. There will be an economic cost to be paid. War is a terrible business. It is not a fun thing. I think a lot of people who are calling for war need to be aware of it. That does not mean that if war is being imposed on us, as it has been for the last 40, 50 years, that we do not fight it. Far from it. But be cognizant that there are serious costs attached to war. Secondly, and I think this is extremely important, Barkha, very often we've said when 26/11 happens, when the train bombings happen, when the bomb blasts take place in 1993, Mumbai bounces back the next day. Okay, there people show a certain amount of resilience. Now you can call it resilience. You can say they had no choice. They had to get back to work. Whatever you might say. I would imagine that, and a lot of people have taken a lot of digs at the tourists who've gone. Some of them have been rather insensitive, but I think a lot of tourists who have continued to go to Kashmir, I think it shows a kind of resilience and a kind of daring do, if you will, on part of the Indian tourist. Okay, fine, shit happens, fine, we are going. We'll take our chances, doesn't matter. We are, tourism, we will do. Okay, tourism has fallen. But I think that Kashmiri bite which you played, I think that the guy does have a point that, look, you need to show certain resilience. You stand with us. A lot of us are standing with you. We have seen scenes in Kashmir which we have not seen in the last 30 years. And I would imagine that this is a sentiment which needs to be encouraged. This is a sentiment that needs to be consolidated. And frankly speaking, again, not a fan of the guy, but I think the role and the kind of stuff which has come out from the Chief Minister, Umar Abdullah, I think we should appreciate him for that. He's shown a very high degree of maturity. He hasn't resorted to cheap populism or, the kind of digs these Aam Aadmi Party tuchas have taken, Saurabh Bhardwaj type third raters who have taken these, digs. He hasn't done any of that. He has behaved with remarkable maturity. And I think we should appreciate that. So on balance, I would think that, at least politically and socially, things are pretty much stable, much more than what the Pakistanis would have hoped for.
Absolutely. That's well said. And in that spirit, before I come to General Malik and Ambassador Raghavan, from Bengal, a farmer sends two of his sons to the army. One of them, Jhantu Ali Sheikh, dies in the line of duty. His brother is a serving soldier of the Indian Army. At his funeral says, हमारी फौज में हिंदू मुस्लिम सिख क्रिश्चियन नहीं है, country first, religion later. Take a look at this heartbreaking little clip.
A father's heart broken forever. 72-year-old Sabar Ali shattered, his eyes searching for a son he will never see again. His son, Havaldar Jhantu Ali Sheikh, had returned home, not in life but wrapped in the tricolour. The first martyr in India's fight against terror after the Pahalgam massacre. As grief engulfed Nadia district in West Bengal, another soldier stood tall amid the sorrow. Jhantu's brother, Subedar Rafiqul Sheikh, wearing his uniform, wearing his pride, and carrying a message India must hear.
Indian Army Dharma? Kuno, kaure dom ache? Indian Army Dharma? Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, सब मिले। हमरा बोझा जी बना रहे, अपना शांति से थके। सबसे मेरा दायित्व जो है, वो है देश की। जो कि मैं बिल्कुल बॉर्डर में तैनात था, जो कि भाई अचानक डेथ हुआ, सर्वोच्च बलिदान दिया। सीओ बोला ठीक है साहब, आप पहले घर देख के आओ, उसके बाद फिर आ जाओ। पहले भाई को निपटा के आ जाओ, उसके बाद फिर जाऊंगा। मेरा सर्वोच्च हमेशा क्या मेरा देश है। सबसे पहले मेरा देश है, उसके बाद मेरा परिवार है।
सबसे पहले मेरा देश है, उसके बाद कुछ और है, उसके बाद कुछ और है. This is at the funeral. General Malik, this is not news to you. You have led the forces as the chief. But these are, while they're very poignant, these are very important messages about who we are as a country.
Yes, Barkha, and I'm proud of all these soldiers, including him. That has been our ethos, that has been our growing up. And as you know, that we believe in all religions. We have these Sarv Dharm Sthal, where we carry out puja or prayers, whatever, at one place only. And long live, I would say, long live our ethos, which is really uniting the country all along, ever since I have grown up in the army.
Absolutely.
I want to say one thing,
yes.
Barkha, if
Go
I
ahead,
may.
sir. Yes, please.
You know, I feel that we are not reading Pakistan adequately. And that is why I am saying is that, look, over the years, what is the kind of education being imparted in their primary school or secondary school or in their madrasas? And that is affecting the mindset of the young people also. As far as the politicians are concerned, they haven't changed. Their mindset continues to be what it was so many years ago. As far as military is concerned, the other day I mentioned to you, this Zia Bharti types are quite different to the generation that we have seen earlier, Jahangir, Karamat, and before that. So that was a different kind of this thing. The mindset of the present generation, including the present chief that we have heard just a few days ago, is quite different. So while India has been progressing in one way and quite appreciative by the world community, I think the world community is not realizing the kind of changes that are taking place in Pakistan and where they are heading. And that affects not just India, but it affects the region and even the other part of the globe in this thing. So I think we have to be very careful. The kind of mindset that is developing, the more jihadi elements are now rising, and even the army is becoming jihadis. So these kind of aspects have to be taken into account, whatever action we now start taking this year, or I mean this time, and in future. All that must be kept in mind, that things are not the same. Things, what is happening, it has a long-term implication and impact on the world, particularly as far as the terrorism part is concerned. It remains epicenter of terrorism, and it now has got more radicalized than ever.
Yeah. General I beg your pardon, Ambassador Raghavan, if you want to come in on that, because I could see you agreeing with General Malik that there's a sense of not reading Pakistan correctly, that this Pakistan has gone beyond bluster. Munir's speech, and General Malik was making this point earlier, that it was very unsoldierly like. Musharraf had all kinds of crazy ideas. Kargil was one of them. General Malik led India's forces at that time. But Munir seems a different order of unhinged. And he's beleaguered at home. A war would suit him. A partial war would suit him, because that would revive his relevance, I guess. But that, of course, can't be India's problems. But when General Malik says that perhaps we are not reading Pakistan adequately, what do you say?
Well, quite frankly, I agree with that statement that we are not reading Pakistan correctly. But with great respect, I have to say I disagree with General Malik. Frankly, I could not understand what the fuss was about in General Munir's speech, because those views have always been there in Pakistan. There's nothing new in what he said, that Pakistan was formed on the basis of a two-nation theory. I mean, this is old wine in old bottles. That Pakistan was formed because Muslims felt that they were culturally and civilizationally distinct from Hindus. I mean, this is Indian political history 1.01 in the first half of the last century. So these views, I'm not quite sure why we made so much out of it. Secondly, we tend to over-examine each Pakistani chief of army staff. I think we should instead focus on the prevalent mindsets in the Pakistan army. And if we look at the mindsets, we'll find that, in fact, between Munir and his predecessors, there's a great element of continuity. And it's not as if we are suddenly dealing with a new kind of fish, which is quite different from the older pattern. So
do you remember a Pakistan army chief talking in this way, that we are superior in ideology and culture? There's nothing in common between us and Muslims, Ambassador Raghavan. I mean, I don't know. There is something that felt different even to me.
Well, I haven't done a search of what army chief said what, but the overall thrust of what he said did not appear to me to be anything new. This is the dominant narrative in Pakistan.
But then a few days later, sorry I'm interrupting you, just to understand, a few days later you have a targeted terror attack on people who had asked, aap Hindu hai ya Muslim hai? So, the timing of the speech and what follows, J.D. Vance here, all of it seems
I'm not sure
more than a coincidence.
I'm not sure whether we have adequate information, at least in the public domain, to explain why the timing of a terrorist attack. I mean, what explained the timing of the attack on Parliament? Or what explained the Mumbai terrorist attack? We can draw a certain general pattern. And this time also we can draw a certain general pattern, but to relate it to specific contingent events, I'm not sure we have enough information or enough intelligence to be able to do that. My common sense tells me a terrorist attack of this magnitude, in which innocent terrorists have been clearly targeted, and not in ones or twos, in a very large number, must have been under planning for some time. It could not have been put together in a few days. So I would hesitate to relate it to a particular speech or a immediate development in the past few days, but instead look for general patterns.
Okay. General Malik, you wanted to respond to that, and then we'll take last comments. General Malik, yeah.
One thing I have to mention here, that no other army chief in the past has spoken so loudly and so badly in public. I can't remember. Even General Zia, who was quite a radicalized person himself, he never spoke this language in public. So, to that extent, I think Asim Munir is different. The kind of language he has spoken, the kind of to the audience that he has spoken. So he is different. And I agree that this planning would have been done much earlier. But then, if this planning has been done, that also shows in his speech, and that can come later. This is quite often.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the question that they were waiting for his speech, but the speech can come later because you have already made the plan and you have already told people to
That's
execute
right.
it. And this is what happened in Kargil also. Although he had already taken the initiative, but Pervez Musharraf, he didn't talk about it till much later.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's my thinking as far as the Pakistan Army is concerned. I do feel that Pakistan Army today is quite different to what it was before Zia days, or before as long as the pre-Zia generation was in leadership.
Right. And we saw the manifestation of that with a clownish, thuggish colonel of the army actually mocking Indian protesters from the Pakistan High Commission in London. I want to start taking last comments looking ahead. Sushant, we haven't spoken about the line of control. It has been the straight fifth night of firing by the Pakistanis across the line of control, and that inflamed LOC has now extended from the Kashmir Valley into the Jammu region. Poonch, areas of Poonch are facing firing across the line of control. Now Akhnur, where the international border is, right? Let's talk about that. The LOC is already hot again. As you said, this is not a video game. So far, no lives have been lost. But we as a country have to be prepared that as we ask for retribution, quite rightly, there are going to be costs attached, and we could be in for a long period of conflict. Whether you call it war or not, what has happened is an act of war, and our response will have to see it as an act of war. Sushant.
So, Barkha, a couple of things. One, on this LOC thing. Look, this is a never-ending thing. You will have, you will have some episodes of ceasefire or peace, and then you will have this kind of exchange, and this is going to happen as long as Pakistan exists as a viable entity. This is not going away anywhere. And your western borders are going to be disturbed for the next 100 years because of the kind of Islamist virus that has come into this region. And I think you probably need another program, and we can discuss all those scenarios. But, I want to, again, very respectfully challenge General Malik when he says that before Zia, the Pakistan army was very nice. Akbar Khan, the man who led the operations in Kashmir,
he's not saying it was very nice. He's just saying it was different.
No, very different. That because, this is the problem with our Faujis. They believe that, same Purana regimental culture, the same old British Indian Army, Bonhomie, all these guys, they go to various...
Come on, Sushant, interpret it properly, please.
Sir, they go and they have their course mates from Pakistan, and, because you can speak the same language. So, but the fact of the matter, Barkha, and this is serious, that Pakistan Army from its very inception always had the trappings of the British Indian Army, the spit and polish and the parade and all of that. Its mindset had started turning into a jihadist army right from day one. Akbar Khan was a manifestation of that when he carried out the operations in Kashmir way back in 47-48. Okay, starting from there, please tell me, Ayub Khan, Sandhurst trained, very, very enlightened fellow. If you read what Altaf Gohar, his biographer, has written about him and the kind of assumptions they made about India, it was a 10th, 11th, 12th century jihadist interpretation of India. One Muslim equal to 10 Hindus, etc., etc. All that bigotry which all these buggers have. All these guys who try and act very sophisticated, very English speaking, very Western educated, 3-piece suit, whiskey drinking. हमारे यहाँ पर ये भी बड़ी problem है. विस्की पीता है, अच्छा आदमी होगा, मतलब कि मॉडरेट होगा. अबे नहीं, he is a jihadist यार. At the end of the day, he hates your guts. And we want to ignore it. It's up to us. We've ignored it for 80 years and, we've got our butts kicked all the time. So we can keep doing it. Okay. So the Pakistan army has always been like that. It has become even more jihadized and radicalized in recent years. Okay. And I can have any number of arguments and debates with any number of people on this. It is manifest not only in the Pakistan army, it is manifest on the streets of Pakistan. It is manifest. All you need to do, Barkha, and you are very friendly with a whole lot of them, scratch them a little bit.
I am not friendly with anyone in the Pakistan army.
No, not Pakistan army. The other characters you get on your shows and you talk to them. Please scratch them a little bit.
Hang on. I want to say one thing. We are the only platform that has not invited anybody from Pakistan since this terror attack. Only platform.
And Barkha, let me tell you something. I have refused to go on any platform which calls any Pakistani. And when they call me for an interview, I tell them that if you have a Pakistani on your show, I'm not coming on your show.
Yeah.
This is the time to give your platforms to these guys.
I agree.
This kind of, tamashebazi, I'm not interested in it. Okay. But let me tell you something. So when you interact with anybody, please scratch them a little bit. All these Hamid Me type of low lives, scratch them a little bit. Just see how it comes pouring out. I have been there. I have seen that. I've sat in groups when suddenly, it slips out. Suddenly it slips out. And then they suddenly realize, oh, a non-Muslim, a Hindu is sitting with us. Okay, maybe he looks like, I look like them. I speak the same language. So maybe they kind of, did not realize it at a point in time. It always comes out. Some of them try and hide it, but eventually it always comes out. So if we don't recognize this simply because, we attended a party with them or we go on junkets with them or whatever, then it is our fault. It is not their fault. They are doing whatever treachery and whatever duplicitousness they've been brought up on. And like I always tell people, please, if you want to get a measure of the Pakistani, especially the Punjabi Muslim, please read what Abdul Salam Zaif, the Taliban ambassador in Pakistan during the first Taliban regime, wrote about them. There's a very evocative paragraph in his book, My Life with Taliban, where he describes them to the T. He says these are people who have two tongues in one mouth, they have two heads on one neck, and they try and be different things to different people, something that Khwaja Asif tried to do. He made a hash of it. But this is what their character is. And if we don't understand it, and we think suddenly, oh, these guys have become really Islamized and radicalized, that's our fault. Okay. It's our failure to understand them and read them.
Okay, I will say that I completely agree that this is neither the time nor the moment to debate. I don't understand these debates that are taking place with Pakistani guests. What is the other side? There is no other side. There is simply no other side. And on a principal position, we have not had any Pakistani representation on our program since this attack has happened. Let's take last comments. Ambassador Raghavan, irrespective of, the degrees of disagreement on how, when exactly the Pakistan military became jihadist, let's look ahead. Let's look ahead. We are in a period that can be described as war-like, something between war and peace, closer to war than to peace. Not war, not peace, and closer to conflict. Maybe conflict is the more appropriate word. What now?
Well, I think, may I say that I disagree with a great deal with what you said and what Sushant Sareen said. Okay. This is a time where we have to be clinical. We shouldn't get narcissistic. And we certainly shouldn't go into echo chambers of refusing to hear another point of view. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that you agree with that point of view. But let's disabuse ourselves of the notion that being in an echo chamber strengthens your national position. It does not. As I said, this is a highly supercharged time. There are all kinds of opinions going around. Everyone wants to get into the act. Everyone wants to wrap the flag around themselves. I think we should recognize the seriousness of the situation if we have to
give. But sir, don't you think it trivializes the conversation to present it in the form of a so-called TV debate? I find that a trivialization of the conversation.
I don't disagree with you. I think a great deal of TV debates, in any case, regardless of Pakistanis being there or not, are highly trivialized. Let's accept that for a
Sure.
start. And I agree with you that often inviting quote unquote Pakistani guests to make them make it into a kind of boxing match, and the Pakistani channels trying to do the same. It's like your
Yeah.
Wagah Atari BSF
It's
Pakistan
theater.
Rangers
It's a tamasha. It's theater.
choreographed theater.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
detracts from the seriousness of the situation. But let's not underestimate the seriousness of the situation, and that requires being clinical. That requires being clinical and not getting carried away by sentiment. As I said at the beginning, I think the diplomatic measure announced in the form of the keeping the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance is a major step whose import has somehow got lost in public opinion in India, because we are so keen on seeing the main course, which we think the only main course which will make a dent is military or tactical kinetic action. I think it's important that we look at the fundamentals, and if we are to play a long game, and yes, with Pakistan you can only play a long game. If we are to play a long game, we have to be less sentimental and more clinical.
Okay, that point is absolutely taken. I'll give the last word to General Malik. Sir, General Malik.
Yeah, again, we were talking about kinetic action. Let me emphasize that, firstly, when you start a kinetic action, you can expect very fast escalation. And that is something which has to be anticipated. The other thing is that it's like a chess game. When you start something, you have to think 2 steps ahead in order to, where do you want to check? You have to be prepared for those 2 steps ahead, and then you have to be prepared for what kind of escalation. And escalation can be checked better if all the 3 minds, the political, the diplomatic, and the military minds, are together. If they are not working together, checking escalation becomes more difficult. So having said that, I feel that if escalation has to take place, if kinetic action has to take place, then it must take place as it did during Kargil War also, where the 3 minds and the supporters, whether it is Home Ministry, Finance, and other people, that they have to work together, and then it is better to, then it will perhaps allow us to check escalation at the point that we want to. But today, I think we have to be prepared for escalation. We have to be prepared for a couple of steps ahead, because it has to be a stronger message than we have been able to do in the past.
We leave it there. I think the one thing that all of us can agree on is that war, I think Sushant said this, is not a video game. Keyboard warriors do not understand what actual soldiers go through. A soldier whose body bag has to come back home, much like the families of those who were killed in Pahalgam, they're actually carrying that very heavy cost, a kind of rupture in their lives. So I take Ambassador Raghavan's point, and I'm sure General Malik and Sushant agree with that. Whatever happens next, as emotional as we feel, as visceral as the rage is, has to be from a clinical place, from a calm place, from a logical place, despite the very natural instinct to fall back into a spontaneous moment of rage that might give the adversary the upper hand. We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Raghavan, Sushant Sareen, General Malik. I want to end the program by bringing you, every day on this program, we bring you a survivor's testimony. This is the story of a new bride who became a widow, a honeymoon that turned into a funeral, the wife of Shubham Dwivedi, speaking to us earlier. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and we leave you with these images.
कुछ ऐसा माहौल नहीं था कि हमें पहले से पता हो या ऐसा कुछ होने वाला है या ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है। वो पीछे से आए, उन्होंने सीधा आते ही आपसे कोई पूछेगा हिंदू और मुसलमान, तो आप समझ ही नहीं पाओगे कि ये क्या हो रहा है, कहाँ से हो रहा है, क्या ये आतंकवादी हैं, ये हमें मार भी सकते हैं। कितने लोग थे? पहला इंसान जो पहला अप्रोच हुआ वो हमें ही हुआ, तो सर मैं आपको नहीं बता पाऊंगी कितने लोग थे, क्योंकि मेरा तो सबसे पहला अप्रोच हुआ, शुभम पे अटैक हो गया, तो मैं फिर भाग के ये थोड़ी देखूंगी वहाँ कौन। फर्स्ट हाँ, वो घुसे ही वहीं से थे। और स्केप का वही एक दरवाज़ा था जहाँ से, जिसके बहुत पास हम बैठे थे। तो अगर शायद भगवान को बचाना ही नहीं था शुभम को, कहीं और चली होती गोली, किसी और पे अटैक हुआ था, तो बहुत पास में भागने के मेरे पास बहुत चांस था। लेकिन पहला अटैक ही शुभम पे हुआ। वो आते हुए हिंदू हो या मुसलमान हो तो हम समझ नहीं पाए। पलट के पूछे क्या हुआ भैया, क्या होगा? तो मैंने कहा हिंदू हो मुसलमान हो तो कलमा पढ़ के दिखाओ। तो हम दोनों ने ही बोला हिंदू है। हमारा सेंटेंस खत्म होते ही एक सेकंड, माइनर सेकंड का वेट नहीं किया, मैंने उसको शॉट कर दिया। तो मुझे तब तक क्या पता था कि वो औरतों को नहीं मारेंगे। शायद पता होता तो मैं शुभम को छोड़ के नहीं आती, मैं उसी के पास बैठी रहती। मैं क्यों छोड़ के आई उसे? शुभम किसी को नहीं भूलना चाहिए। इस घटना में इस देश के बच्चे गए हैं, उन्हें किसी को भूलना नहीं चाहिए, खासकर शुभम, क्योंकि उसको पहली गोली लगी, बहुत बच के उसकी वजह से वापस आए हैं। बहुत लोग नीचे जो स्केप कर पाए उस गन शॉट की वजह से, इसलिए उसको शहीद की उपाधि देनी चाहिए। उसे याद रखें।
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.